I remember the sting of the cold floor pressing against my cheek, the fluorescent lights buzzing mercilessly above me, and the sharp metallic taste of blood coating my tongue. The world around me blurred into fragments of sound, colleagues shouting my name, footsteps rushing, a voice calling for an ambulance. In that moment, I was no longer Marcus, the dependable professional, the husband who worked tirelessly, the man people leaned on. I was just a body sprawled on the ground, fragile, weak, and broken. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed. Wires were threaded into my veins, machines beeped rhythmically by my side, and the antiseptic scent of the ward clung to everything. The doctors told me they had called my wife first. She was the emergency contact, the person I trusted above all others. She never came. Instead, as I lay helpless, I saw my phone screen flicker to life on the table beside me. A notification. A tag. Her sister had uploaded a photo. My wife was there, sitting on a picnic blanket with a glass of wine raised in her hand, her father smiling proudly behind a grill, children running freely in the background. Their faces were radiant with laughter, with joy, with belonging. The caption beneath the photo pierced deeper than any knife ever could. Family Day. No drama. Without me. I didn't say a word. Not to the doctors. Not to my colleagues. Not even to her. Silence became my shield, a mask that hid the tidal wave crashing inside me. For 11 years, I had devoted myself to that marriage. I gave her everything I had, my trust, my loyalty, my devotion in ways that words could never capture. I worked hours that stretched deep into the night, not because I wanted wealth for myself, but because I wanted security for us. I wanted her to feel safe, to never worry about bills, to live with freedom and comfort. I believed we were partners. I believed she was my anchor. But memories have a cruel way of resurfacing when your body lies immobile. I thought back to the early days, her laughter filling the cramped apartment we first shared, bowls of noodles eaten cross-legged on the floor, our whispered dreams echoing in the quiet darkness of our nights. We promised to fight battles together. And for a while, I believed we did. But somewhere along the line, the laughter turned to cutting words, the warmth dimmed into cold stares, and the bond became a performance. Hers for the world to see, mine for the sake of survival. The first few days in the hospital, I could hardly move. Machines did the work my body couldn't. I was a prisoner in my own weakness. And through it all, she never came. Not once. The nurses murmured softly to each other, thinking I couldn't hear. The family hasn't shown up yet. They shook their heads with pity. My silence grew heavier. Then, 4 days later, my phone vibrated with life. I reached for it with trembling fingers and saw the screen light up. 44 missed calls. From her. From her father. And a single message. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't concern. It wasn't remorse. It was short. Urgent. Demanding. We need you. Answer now. Not once did it say, how are you? Not once did it say, I'm sorry for not being there. It was just another reminder of what I truly was to them. A resource, a provider, a shield they could hide behind. Not a husband. Not a man. Certainly not family. And in that moment, clarity settled over me like ice water. I realized I had never been loved. I had only been used. They had left me for dead until they needed me again. That was the truth. And while my body was still frail, my mind sharpened. Pain became a blade that carved away my illusions. I had lost everything, except awareness. And with awareness came power. Lying in that bed, I began to take inventory. Not of my health, but of my leverage. Months earlier, after endless pressure from my wife to add her father as a beneficiary to certain accounts, I had quietly made changes. She thought she had manipulated me, but I had anticipated her hunger. I had secured my assets under new terms, with safeguards she knew nothing about. What she didn't know was far greater, that I had kept records, files, emails, recordings she thought were long gone. I had tracked every financial thread she and her father had tried to weave behind my back, and I had tucked them away in silence. That silence would become my greatest weapon. With machines beeping beside me, I propped my laptop across my chest, every keystroke deliberate and sharp, like carving stone with a knife. I updated my will. I redirected assets. I locked accounts behind codes they would never guess. My body trembled, but my will did not. When my strength returned, I hired a private investigator, not to confirm infidelity, because I didn't need that proof, I had seen enough to know the betrayal ran deeper than affairs. I wanted the truth about money, land deeds, fraudulent transfers, hidden debts. I wanted the skeletons buried in her father's closet. What came back was not just evidence. It was a banquet of sins. Frauds disguised as investments. Debts hidden under false names. Scams wrapped in arrogance. The investigator gave me more than I could have hoped for. And suddenly, I was no longer the man abandoned in a hospital bed. I was the man holding the match over their dry, crumbling empire. I didn't confront them. I didn't scream or accuse. I let them keep calling. I let them keep writing. I let them stew in their desperation until the air itself grew thick with their fear. Then, with calculated calm, I responded. I told my wife I would return in 2 days. Still fragile, but willing. I heard the relief in her voice when she exhaled. "We'll talk when you're back," she said. Perfect. The morning of my return, I didn't go home. Instead, I went to the bank, then to the lawyer, then to the board of directors at my company. I left behind quiet packages of truth, documents showing her father's fraudulent dealings, his schemes that funneled money under my name. I tied the noose with precision, ensuring nothing could be traced back to me when the storm broke. By the time I finally walked into our house, the gears were already turning. She smiled at me, hesitantly, as though a smile could erase the truth. She touched my arm softly, almost tenderly, as if she could will herself back into my trust. "We've had family problems. Mostly Dad. We just need your support." I nodded calmly, feigning weakness, letting her think she still held power. That night, I placed a folder on the dining table. She laughed nervously as she opened it, expecting contracts or perhaps financial statements. But her laughter died as her eyes froze on the pages. Fraudulent contracts. Emails in her own words encouraging her father's crimes. My lawyer's signature at the bottom. Her face drained of color. Her father stormed into the room minutes later, sweat on his brow, curses spilling from his lips, demanding to know my plan. I leaned back, calm, steady, and said only 4 words. "It's already in motion." And it was. Her father's accounts froze within days. Business partners cut ties. Rumors of criminal investigations spread like wildfire. My wife's desperation grew louder, her apologies thicker, her tears more frequent. But I knew the difference between panic and remorse. Her pleas weren't born from love. They were born from fear. "You can't do this to your family," she cried, clutching at my sleeve. I looked her in the eye, cold and unwavering. "You did this the day you chose a photo over my life." She tried to twist her story, to tell me she had been overwhelmed, afraid, unsure of how to face the reality of the hospital. But excuses, no matter how carefully stacked, rot from the inside. And I had stopped listening. The final blow was not mine, it was public. Her father's arrest filled headlines. Investigative reports dissected his schemes for the world to see. Her friends no longer saw her in family photographs, but in the shadow of disgrace. Her world collapsed not because I screamed, but because I whispered to the right people. I signed the divorce papers with steady hands. She wept in the lawyer's office, promising change, begging forgiveness. But forgiveness is reserved for those who make a mistake once. She chose betrayal again and again. I walked out lighter than I had been in years. They abandoned me when I was weakest. I destroyed them when I was strongest. And as I left the courthouse, the sun warm on my face, I remembered that caption. Family Day. No drama. No, it was never drama. It was betrayal. And now they can have their family day without me, forever. If Marcus's story struck a chord with you, remember this: silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the sharpest blade you can carry. If you've ever felt abandoned, betrayed, or underestimated, know that your strength lies in patience and clarity. Don't just survive. Rise, rebuild, and reclaim what is rightfully yours. For more stories like this, make sure to subscribe, share this video with someone who needs it, and let's continue walking through the fires of life together.